Hey guys, it's Ryan and today is my second video on the Highland Brawl, the Scottish tournament that happened in Stirling on the 4th of June. This video is going to be one of two halves, where I'll talk a bit about the event itself, did I meet my goals, and show off some of the photos and talk about some of my games. My photos are a bit spotty unfortunately, but hopefully you enjoy the video and remember to like and subscribe for more. But before we begin, I've been asked to do a quick shout out from Bruce from the Swiss Miss podcast. If anyone is looking for a 2-day Infinity ITS event, check out the San Diego Shipyard Showdown. It will be held on September the 9th and 10th with 5 games at 300 points. Missions to be announced pending Endsong and the new ITS season. No ITS link just yet, so check out the Facebook group. Tickets are $60 and the prize support will be amazing. I personally won't be there since it's the other side of America from me, but I am assured it will be a good time. Check out the link in the card for more information. So plugging other events aside, let's talk about the event I attended. As I mentioned just a second ago, it was the Highland Brawl, the first bigger Scotland event, and it was run in Stirling as that's a pretty central location. 13 players showed up to play 3 rounds of Unmasking, powerpack and supplies at 300 points with full ITS rules. We had something like 7 tables laid out and they'll be playing on the screen now, and they were all fantastic. 1 or 2 had some issues, but a quick reposition here and an agreement on infinite height there, and it was mostly resolved. Except maybe the forest one. I ended up winning 2 lieutenant roles over my matches and going first both times because I play military orders and I chose violence, so I didn't really get to pick my sides, but they were good tables regardless of the sides that you picked. So the event itself, we started at about 11 and we finished about 7:30, and that included lunch and prizes, and that was about 2.5 hours per game. I think I only got round 3 done in that time since round 1 went on to lunch, and we kind of finished up our turns as lunch was being served, but before burgers were in hand, so it sort of counts. Round 2 went a little long, and we had to call it after both our turns too. The final round, me and my opponents blitzed through and finished with 10 minutes to spare. So it was a long day, and by the way, to that commenter who told me to eat and drink plenty, thank you so much, that was actually a godsend. The prize support and enthusiasm for the event was great, on both counts regardless of the length. The tournament organiser, Kevin, or Trash Panda, went out of his way to get a solid amount of prizes so that everyone got at least 2, with the top 3 getting 3. You can see my prizes now. I was really hoping for the Marut or the Eariler, but I'm pretty happy to have gotten Wolfie. I do really need some more Wolvers for Caledonia. But to look back quickly to the enthusiasm of everyone there, it was really good to talk to a bunch of people who were all really happy to be there, and I really enjoyed chatting with everyone. It was a great time. So random arbitrary goals I set in my last video. Did I manage them? Well, I had a fantastic day playing Infinity and chatting with people, so tick 1 for enjoying myself. But did I win a game? I did indeed, coming 3rd with 2 wins and a close loss. Each game was down to the wire, and each one of my opponents I'd happily play against again. So yeah, 2nd tick for having a good time and a new one for winning, so a fantastic first IRL outing for me. Let's get into the rounds themselves though. Apologies for the photos I took, some will be a mix of mine and a mix of other photos of the tables with some tactical doodles on them. Round 1, as mentioned before, was Unmasking, and I was playing against Corregidor and a newer player. But that's fine since we both always was clear with our intent and checked regularly with the TO if we were unsure. I brought this list, which was my more successful list, and it played it fairly well. It is an attempt to run different profiles in military orders, and I finally wanted to try out the Knight Hospitallers again. I had run this before in supplies against Tunguska and lost, but the Knight of Justice proved itself a good solo piece if that Harris goes to pot. I of course used 2 trends because I always do, 1 in each group, which I have some thoughts on later I'll talk about. So yeah, a Harris of a HMG Knight Hospitaller so I can reach out, a Doctor to pick things back up and to be there for supplies, and the Knight of Justice for melee support and unmasking. This will be my manoeuvre element to do the objectives alongside my trends and pathfinders, the core of a Teutonic Knight Missile Launcher, Teutonic Knight Lieutenant, Order Sergeant Hacker, Crozier Paramedic and Crozier Vanilla. This is my defensive core, and it was really good and made sure that anything that fought it was not going to get by it quickly. So round 1, turn 1, I lost the lieutenant role and was going second, but I picked what I thought was a fairly decent defensive half, but in hindsight that was probably a little wrong. The height advantage of the buildings and the fact the objectives were far more open to his side made it a bad choice, but I think laziness was involved here, but nonetheless, the sides were picked. He went first and moved up his core and managed to push the left objective marker by revealing one of my fake HVTs to the left of the picture, marked with the impetuous token. He also moved his core as close to the line of the shipping containers as he could. I'm not sure why he done this, to be honest, as one wrong move and bad face-to-face roll and that pie dish would have flattened that core. In saying that, it could have been to do with moving a camel token slowly and revealing it to be an intruder sniper to try and gap my Teutonic Knight missile launcher, which was scary, and well, this was a wild exchange. I believe I dodged on the opening salvo, failed, ate 2 double action saves, survived, couldn't guts or prone or improve my cover thanks to Religious and the fact that I couldn't go anywhere. He fires a second shot at me, and I think this dodge does succeed, which means I evolved all damage, and he decides that was probably enough. This intruder would be my bane until turn 2. Meanwhile, this was all going on, he tries to sneak up McMurder up the board, not doing much for some reason, and a bandit gets the right button, which reveals my right HVT, and that's the end of the turn 1, with surprisingly nothing dead. My turn 1 was a little rough, but not crippling. I activated my Pathfinder to scoot up the board, and then it got immediately shot by the intruder. Fortunately, we were playing by intent, but it didn't save the bot. We were pretty great at being clear on what we wanted and what was best and what line of fire was. Basically, turn 1, group 1 and 2 orders were either spent on moving up and around to try and leverage some sort of advantage against the intruder sniper. I don't know why I was scared of him, but I think I was basically either I was beyond 32 with my HMG, or smoke covered my line of sight, but not his thanks to his MSV2. Or I would eat more than one arrow and I wanted to save my HMG. Basically, I spent the turn moving and pressing the right button, taking it from him and revealing his designated target. McMurrough blocked me from shooting the bandit. It's worth noting now, he would just not stop succeeding on every smoke roll he did, bar like 1 or 2. I spent a good few orders clearing the boxes with just climbing and jumping, but that was my turn 1. His turn 2, he moved the core around and not much happened, mostly just wasting more orders on my Teutonic Knight and moving his core into position, and I think smoking out my Harris. I was really expecting the berserk here and it never came. The bandit didn't move far and we exchanged some hacking to no effect. My turn 2 was a bit more active than turn 1. I started with my Knight of Justice, who is about to prove why he is great. I activated, put 2 heavy pistol shots into the bandit and 1 into McMurder. 2 Dirty Harry shots later, the bandit is dead and the dog smokes up, and that puts me into a very good situation. Now, I could move my Harris around without the dog bothering me, and maybe with some foolhardy confidence, I decide to take a shot at the intruder. I did have burst on my side, and well, I finally put the intruder into an unconscious state, which swung things around drastically in my favour. No more lines that were massively blocked, and I went to work. I swung my Knight of Justice forward with the Harris, and pushed the button, and fought Jazz a little with hacking, and explained why Trinity isn't a good idea against my Knight of Justice. I revealed the nearby HVT and put 3 shots into her, killing them and scoring me a point. McMurder slowly dodging towards me while this happens. With points on the board, I feel more confident. I move my still alive Trin, the other one died doing something stupid, up the board in anticipation of the core moving forward to try and grab the last button. His turn 3 was not to be snuffed, though, either. He moved his core, stealing the middle button from me and revealing my designated target. He would push forward to try and take him out, and I quickly decided that I would dodge into melee to slow them down. He would very quickly remedy this with a CC attack from McMurrough. 2 on 23s and 1 on 26 was not a good roll for me, and I just got flattened in one go. While this was the single biggest loss of the game, I still had plenty of dudes alive. He would continue on with the core, putting down my designated target and 1 spare HVT without much issue. This put him into the lead going into my turn 3. I had a lot to do, but fortunately I had a lot of orders to do so. So it's mine to try and get the win. First things first, that Jaguar near the HVT, and I've managed to splash him down, and her, with the pie dish. That's a Teutonic Knight, 2 on 14s versus his 1 on 16. Both templates go down, she fails the dodge, and gets splattered, and the Jaguar goes down as well. Now we're level. Now I just need to kill the last HVT to win. I move up unharmed with my Trin thanks to a random smoke, press the last button, and I manage to get a beat on the last HVT with a good few orders left. I put 3 shots into her with it, and kill her dead. and that finally wins me the game 8-4. I had 2 consoles flipped to me and 1 to him, and I had killed more HVTs. Weirdly, this was an incredibly bloodless game, with me having like 200 odd points left at the end of the game. Fantastic game overall, that was really helped out by a great opponent and playing by clear intent. It helped deal with the physical space issues, and after this match, knowing I had scored a personal goal, I was feeling great. Round 2 was a slightly different beast. I was playing against Morats, so nice and simple, and I was playing powerpack, so good news, no chance of impersonators doing me damage. But also Razak could have come in and done the same thing, but unfortunately it didn't. Or fortunately it didn't. Oh, and in this one I brought the tag list. I was happy with the list at the time, but in hindsight, I'm not sure. Why? Well, I feel like I was limiting myself to only 2 real assault pieces. The core does not deal with smoke well and has low burst. I also played this list poorly, but it had good key pieces, just not either enough or covering enough. Anyway, you can't go wrong with a Tika Montesa. Or well, at least I did. Anyway, this was a pretty bog standard Morat list with a missile launcher bot, K-Talk, super sniper team, Cornac, and the exploding doggos. I really did not take good photos here, so feel free to just listen and tab off as I talk. Same as game 3. Right, so I go first and deploy first, and again, not on the high ground, which he picked, and that was the right choice for him. We did treat the big building in the middle as infinitely high, which was a good call. Alongside the core on the right, I deployed my Montesa as my reserve, directly in line of fire of his Surat heavy rocket launcher. The left side is better set up with the tag, the engineer, and the bots projecting defense. The trins were actually placed quite well here. The Teak has some freedom to push up and kill things, with my first activation of the match with Impetuous, forgetting that Morats have weirdly good MSV coverage and that the Surat can see me. I push the Montesa up, putting 3 shots with my Red Fury into the heavy rocket launcher, and he has 1 heavy rocket launcher shot into me, and I fail and immediately fail the continuous damage 3 times, and he sends me straight to dead. I'm not even like mad or surprised. I have no luck when it comes to continuous damage. I stupidly went, here's one of my pieces, please shoot it. I should have played him as regular and moved him up through the map low and slow. Okay, secondary piece dead, time for the main piece to do his job, and the take was wild. I pushed very deep into his backline, making good use of climbing plus and burst 4 on 15s before range modifiers to just start shooting things fairly well. I killed an Oznat with a heavy flamethrower on the way in, a Gaki, and I put a wound on Cornac and made the K-Talk dodge a lot. I eventually pulled back, although not far enough, and in hindsight I feel like I should have either pushed deeper into his backline and started flaming Cornat, his missile bot, and really tried to wipe out the flank. He would still have his core fire team, however he would be in loss of lieutenant, which doesn't mean much in Morats, but instead I retreated, although not far enough, out of fear of getting dogpiled in melee. His turn 1, he smartly, but with a lot of orders, spent his way smoking up to CC my Tikbalang to death with his Datarazi, which is a very smart choice. Eventually he gets there and begins to CC the robot. He's on 26s, which means he's critting on 14s versus my succeeding on 14s or less. He wins the first face-off, and I think this is it. I'm slowly but surely my tag's gone. Next order, I think I save the damage. Third roll, I crit on a 14 and the Datarazi eats 2 damage 15 saves, and he goes to dead, which was absolutely wild. In revenge for that, and to be fair, the correct play was to just begin to shoot my Teak to death with his Yaogat super core. Burst 3, I think on 16s with AP, which I wasn't going to tell him was mildly worse than DA, but he eventually went through and put 4 more wounds onto the Teak, removing it from play, and my last chance to get a card. Lots of orders spent doing this, but it was ultimately worth it. Both my key pieces are dead. My opponent had basically admitted how he was very happy with how that had turned out, as I had wasted far too many orders on not much. Which, I mean, at this point I had already figured out, and to be honest, I agreed with. I played poorly, overextending, and he punished me correctly. I do wonder what ifs on this one, but honestly it's all 2020 hindsight. I think he also takes that super sniper and proceeds to get my Teutonic Knight back to the medieval ages. I can't say I'm surprised though. The whole 1 dice on 17s only really works if you have cover, which I had, but not from his super high up snipers. This seriously defanged my list further. Right, my turn 2 and we're tight on time. Basically I need objectives to win and I do not have turn order on my side. So I sprint forward my group 2 Trinitarian and basically get to the objective and fail with the 1 order I have left. So I have to send up my Raven Eye officer in group 1 to do that job and kill a Gaki on the way up to grab the left of the objective. I had used the last of my Group 1 orders to put my second Trinitarian on the right objective to grab that one. If I had not lost the rolls, then maybe I could have put that Raven Eye Officer or Trin into the centre to grab that injective instead. My opponent still had something like 10 orders in Group 1, so I think that discussion is a bit mute since he probably could have just out-ordered me anyway, assuming he gets things on good rolls. I was hoping for a draw, but I'm expecting the loss now. His final turn due to time, and he charges a Gaki up, who I think kills my Trin, and then Anya nicely grabs the objective back and scores a card by coup de grace, crying my Trin, scoring a classified, which means he goes ahead 5-4, as we both have one console and both hold out our rear consoles. Well done to a great match from my opponent. Looking back at the match, it's obvious to say I misplayed here, pushing the Teak too far forward for not much. If I had killed more stuff, then I think I might have made it worth it, as the next turn I could throw the Teak at better angles to fight the core. The Montesa was such an obviously silly mistake, and it cost me dearly. If he had done something with that shotgun, it could have been different. I like this list, but I'll talk about it later about the changes I made. Ultimately, he set up a good trap and counters to my list, and I lost to the better player. Well done on the deserved 5-4 win. Okay, round 3 and its supplies against Tohaa. Never played the cabbages before, but I do like the look of and how cheap Spiral Core starters are, and I have been looking at rules. So I was aware how they worked, so I wouldn't get caught out, but we were both, again, pretty clear with each other and both has courtesy lists the entire time. I could not say the names of a given unit, but I do know what they were. I kept an eye out for mates, bombs and transmutation W. The key pieces I noticed were the Tackle, Nicol, Jansar, Sukul and Macalls, all of which could pose some issues to me, but I could deal with most of them. So let's get to the game. I basically took more photos of this one, but again not so much, so it's better just to listen. Oh, and I'm going first. Turn 1, activation 1. Third time in a row, my unit gets shot, this time by the Nicol sniper who had a lot of lines of fire, but fortunately a lot of it being blocked as well. Ah well, I didn't need Group 2 anyway, so I do the quick maths and realise the best shot I have against him, like the intruder, is my Harris. Yet again, that's going to be very order intensive to take him on, so that's future Ryan's problem, the utter sap. Anyway, I have a Jansar problem first and foremost, and I slowly move up the Harris to get around and prevent the sniper or the Sukul with the K1 sniper from slapping me. I slowly walk up and prepare to fight Jansar, as I might have the advantage as I can kill him for extremist recovery. So I try to spotlight him going in, which I believe I fail, and I do manage to soak the endgame thanks to BTS9, the firewall on the Knight of Justice, which was the best use of that all day. Eventually Jan gets shot to death, and I'm blocked from moving on him by the Sukul. Not an eventful turn 1, but not bad. I pass on Group 2 since my trins are just awfully placed. His first turn, lots of Eclipse smoke goes down and he ends up sniping my Warcore, I think across the map, and he moves his Sukul, Forward Observer and Makal Harris up, and my Sektet and Fungazi take some shots, but I don't believe they take any wounds. The Sektet goes prone, but lives. Paul Blart, Molcop pick, related. He runs out of orders with that group and steals a box with the Sektet and moves a Camo 0 marker up, but nothing really happens. Turn 2, I actually need to do something, so I move my Harris up and fight the Fish Boy. He eventually dies as well after revealing. I think the Doctor Knight Hospitaller soaks all the damage this turn because the Knight Hospitallers are just fantastic. I made the mistake to, rather than risking the Knight of Justice losing runes or worse, to just not immediately go get the card and try to dodge him across the Sukul's line of fire. I instead tried to gunfight him with the K1 sniper. This would waste like 4 or 5 orders and basically only do a wound to him and my Knight Hospitaller HMG, and wasting his might as well. I would eventually get the card, but it felt not really worth it. I retreat a little and kill the Fish Boy if I hadn't already. I think I also stood up the Sektet and took some pot shots, but nothing happens. This, however, would come in handy later. So his turn 2 was the wild one. He moves his left-hand side Harris to finally try and kill my Sektet and Fundazi. However, the Sektet gets some seriously good shots through it and puts a round through the Macall and kills it dead. The second Macall moves up and, well, eats a shot from the Sektet, trying to smoke me out. I think the Sukul moves up as well and eats a shot in a bid to get the left-hand side box, either in this turn or next. So yeah, one reactive turn and this 11-point Rent-A-Cop with a War Crime rifle has nearly wiped out an entire Harris. The left flank defended, he sprints his tackle up to try and clear out my Harris, and it largely succeeds, taking out my HMG and Knight of Justice when he works with his Sukul sniper. It's not looking good for me, but I might be able to still win here. Turn 3 is where the game is won though. I bring both Trins in. Group 2 gets gubbed by 2 mines immediately, trying to forward observe the Nicole. Not sure why I tried that, but it was either that or he does nothing, so why not? I bring the Group 1 Trin in to tussle with the tackle, which doesn't end well except to another wound through her. Realising I'm lacking firepower, I decide to do something potentially stupid, and I lob a medkit into the HMG. Thanks to Fizz 14 I get back up, and this is where I decide to go ham. I use the heavy machine gun to pull the Sukul K1 sniper unconscious as revenge, and I push the tackle back. I think maybe even killing her, but it did allow me to sneak up with my doctor, get the box, and sneak away back thanks to stealth. I managed to get right back to my DZ slowly thanks to no arrows, so it basically secured the box for me. The HMG also allowed me to burst down the box carrying Sectet and maybe now the Tackle, so now he has no boxes and no units nearby. Finally, I think just for a laugh, I threw a coordinated order with my Teutonic Knight missile launcher and Panzerfaust at the sniper. Nothing happens here, but it was worth a shot. I reformed the fire team. If I had succeeded on this, then maybe I would have tried to see if I could sprint the Sectet over to the left hand side box and steal that and secure me the win. But I don't really remember if the order of operations and my order count at the time would have really allowed that. His turn 3 not to lose, and he's limited on orders now as I've slowly ground him down over the last 2 turns. He adds up his orders, does some quick maths, and sprints his Sakul with D charges forward to get a card. He fires some shots at my Teutonic Knight, not sure why even he was confused here, and is just unable to pick that supply box back up, and thus it costs him the game. I think with that split order pool he had, he was a little light on orders and thus couldn't make it there. But with that done, I won 5-1 with the Sectet being the man of the match. This was a great game, and if my left flank hadn't held the way it did, this would have very well been a loss for me. My opponent played really well, was a great guy, like with all my other opponents, and I hope to play him again. I was genuinely worried about going against Tohaa, and I was right to. There was a lot of good pieces that meant I had to be smart to approach him. The Nicole, I couldn't shift with its mate, demanding position and long range gun. MO does have a range problem that maybe Caledonia or Cosmoflot could have done thanks to linked snipers or surprise attacks, but that's not what I had. The Sukul commandos with their K1 snipers and K1 combi rifles held a strong position as well, meaning thanks to that I had to be really careful where I moved and wasted orders getting to fights. With this, I would place 3rd just above the other MO guy by 1 point. So yeah, not bad, and thank you to the tournament organizer for running this tournament and setting up. It was a lovely day. Now let's talk about lists and lessons learned. List 1 was fantastic and is basically now a staple in my MO roster. The Knight Hospitaller Harris ability to take a HMG Doctor and beefy wildcards means that it's really tough to shift, and I could have tussled with even some hacking lists, of course within reason. I could have swapped out and shifted round points and made the Knight of Justice and Knight of Santiago to save 8 points, and make the Pathfinder a Billeteer, or go even further to make the Knight of Justice a boarding shotgun Knight Hospitaller and upgrade to a Montesa easily, but I largely like what I've done here, and I like that I can tweak it a little. Speaking of, List 2 wasn't as good, and I think maybe mostly misplaced, but also I feel like only having 2 options and some trins to glue it together might not be the best. I think I would do the opposite to List 1 and swap the Montesa for a Pathfinder even beyond ITS 14 and take the Specialist SMG Teutonic Knight so I could have more midfield presence to help the attack. Something else I've noticed here is that it kinda sucked having no MSV or Burst in my core. Even Burst 3 would have been better against the lone snipers holding me down. This leads to the eternal military order defensive core debate, Blackfriar versus Teutonic Knight. And despite what I had just said, I personally prefer the Teutonic Knight because it's 2 wounds, it's dodging on 17, but having a Burst 14 heavy rocket launcher with MSV2 is also very appealing as well, and that can lose a lot more of the core before it loses effectiveness. That is all to say that I think it's really 6 one way, half a dozen another. The whole MO core is fantastic and I love it. It's very easy to bring in a specialist, lieutenant, an order sergeant hacker with 6th sense and a variety of guns. It's what a line infantry corps should be. I do want to try a pure one someday, but that's a separate list entirely. Finally, when I'm not being bad at placing trends, the 2 marker state skirmisher specialists in the midfield just tend to be the glue that hold my list together, so that's not changing. Finally, I do think turn order played a role in my results, and maybe I need to work better on my capitalization of turn 1 going first or second. So yeah, that was my video on the Highland Brawl. I had a great time and I hope you gleaned something from my list and my experience. I also hope you're now pumped for local events. Once again, thank you to everyone who made the Highland Brawl work. It was a great day and I hope I get more games against you all. Specifically thanks to Kevin and his helpers for organising it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.